Here I'll talk about some important strategies and activities for teaching pronunciation in English language classrooms. The list of such strategies and activities may be very long, but I'll just mention a few important ones because of the shortage of time. One of the important strategy could be the cultivating positive feelings and attitude towards pronunciation among the students. This is very important, and this will keep them motivated throughout the process of learning. In this regard, teachers should create such an atmosphere in the classroom that their students always feel pronunciation as an important task of learning, and they consider that pronunciation is important to be understood by others. Teachers may also include some background lessons on the various varieties of English language so that students are fully aware of the importance of various varieties of English and their pronunciation, and this may reduce students' comprehension problems. And this would also help students to work on specific features of their own pronunciation. Secondly, we might say that teachers should identify specific pronunciation problems of their students. In this regard, they can also take help from their prior experiences of teaching, and if they have learned English as a second language, they could include their own experiences, and such experiences may be valuable for their future teaching. But not all experiences we know have predictive value, so they should be very cautious while picking various experiences for teaching. However, in short, we may say that these experiences may be useful. Based on such research, teachers might prepare list of words or list of sounds which are problematic for their students and can make them work on those sounds. The knowledge of context may also be very valuable. For example, in certain contexts, some sounds are more problematic than other contexts, and similarly, the problematic sounds in other contexts may be different. We know that the problematic sounds of English in Asian and in European contexts are quite different. Teachers can also learn a great deal by observing their own students within the classroom. They can observe their students and take a note of their problems while pronouncing different words. And therefore, they can always use various sources to record them or note them. Checklist could be a better option if students can prepare them, and teachers can prepare them in advance. And as soon as their students face a problem, they take a note of it on their checklist. And these checklists would help them in preparing a better pronunciation strategies in the next classes. Next is make learners aware of prosodic features of English language. This is very important. Making your students aware of various rhythmic elements of the language is important to learn proper pronunciation. And this also adds to the intelligibility or comprehensibility of the learners. Teachers may be trained in the prosodic features of English language, and they may be asked to listen to the rising intonation in various constructions, for example, in yes-no questions, or they may be asked to compare question intonation in English language and their own native language or languages. So that might give them a chance to compare various sound patterns employed in various question forms. And then lead perception exercises on the duration of stress, loudness of stress and pitch can also be valuable. Teachers may also focus on the difference between stressed and unstressed syllables. For example, the primary stress is on the first syllable in compound nouns such as airport or laptop. So teachers may make their students familiar with such rules, and there could be many other rules related to this. So a thorough discussion and practice of such rules may be useful in pronunciation classrooms. Teachers can present pronunciation rules for stress as well. For example, they can teach their learners that in reflexive pronouns, the stress is always on the syllable self. For example, in words like myself and ourselves, the focus or the stress is on the self syllable of these words. Then analogy exercises can also be useful, and these exercises are based on words sharing similar stress patterns, and they are easier for listeners to remember. So ask listeners to remember such words, and they would be helpful for them in producing more sounds. For example, in compound adverbs of location such as inside, downstairs, and outdoors, the stress is on the final syllable. So making students realize such rules can be useful in pronunciation classrooms. A focus on developing learners' communicative competence may also be a goal of pronunciation teaching, and learners should be exposed to various conversation so that they can understand the pronunciation and can distinguish between the various sounds and their pronunciation. In this regard, teachers may use audio or video tapes, and they might use them by collecting sources from various varieties of English language. Teaching of pronunciation is very much related to the level of learners, because the materials for the teaching of pronunciation and exposure to the proper level of pronunciation is definitely related to the level of learners. I'll just give you a few examples of some samples or some areas of pronunciation which may be introduced to the beginner level learners. For example, a teacher might introduce some simple features of pronunciation to such learners, and these simple features include syllable stress, voiced and voiceless consonants, introduction to the silent letters in words, etc. There could be certain pronunciation activities for the beginner learners, and slap the word is an activity which is very common and used in various English language teaching contexts. In this game, it's a kind of fun game where students are expected to associate words that are posted on a wall within the classroom, and they are asked to reinforce pronunciation patterns which are there on the wall. Then read and rhyme is another important activity which asks students to come up with words that rhyme with others, and they are usually presented on certain cards. In this way, students are able to recognize the words with similar sounds. Overall, we can say that the teachers should ask their students to practice the sounds of English language, or let's say any other foreign language, more and more. The more they practice, the better they would get in learning the pronunciation of that language. So the best strategy to teach an English language may roughly be said to be the requirement of making students practice more about the pronunciation of a target language.